Mr. Hall, your attorneys are present. When they address the court, they're gonna go to the podium, so you should be able to see them at that time. But obviously, we are not in a position where you can consult privately with them today, but you've had a chance to talk to them, is that correct? That's a yes? Yep. Alright, thank you. Alright, this is, Mr. Hall's motion as a witness to quash the subpoena. Who would like to address it? Cousins, if you would. And you can take off your mask if you'd like.
Thank you, Judge. Good morning, Your Honor.
Morning.
Mr. Hall has been subpoenaed as a witness in this case by both the prosecution and defense. Defense counsel in their opening statement specifically named Mr. Hall and told the jury that they intend to call him and previewed what that testimony they believe would be. So in order to avoid any kind of delay or interruption in these proceedings, I notified all parties that Mr. Hall would be invoking his Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination were he called to testify. I then subsequently filed my motion to quash the subpoena. Your Honor, at this point in time, Mr. Hall has no immunity. He has been provided no immunity, no protection for his testimony whatsoever. And because of that, Mr. Hall is invoking his Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination in several key areas of questioning that we believe he would face were he to be called to testify.
So let's stop you there. You said in certain areas that he would testify to. So there are some topics that would not incriminate him, is that correct?
Your Honor, I cannot envision any topics that Mr. Hall would be called to testify on that would be both relevant to the case that would not incriminate him.
Well, that's ultimately the court's decision, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And that's on a question-by-question basis, is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Go ahead. I interrupted you.
No, that's okay, Judge. And just for brevity, I wanted to outline those areas that I believe Mr. Hall may face questioning. The first area where he would be invoking his privilege against self-incrimination is any activities that took place on May 25th, 2020, both before and after police arrived.
Okay.
Mr. Hall's testimony in these matters would specifically put him in the position of being in very close proximity to Mr. Floyd. There's an allegation here that Mr. Floyd ingested a controlled substance as police were removing him from the car. A car, by the way, that has been searched twice, and to my understanding, drugs have been found in that car twice. This leaves Mr. Hall potentially incriminating himself into a future prosecution for third-degree murder. And specifically, that's 609.195 subdivision B. And that statute, as the court is well aware, covers third-degree murder liability for someone who is involved in drug activity that eventually leads in an overdose. And that statute is broad, Judge. It does not just include the situation where A sells drugs to B, B then succumbs to an overdose. In fact, it includes any activity directly or indirectly, unlawfully selling, giving away, bartering, delivering, exchanging, distributing, or administering a controlled substance classified as Schedule 1 or 2. So that statute is broad, Judge, and it has been interpreted broadly by Minnesota courts. Again, it's not just that A and B situation. In fact, anyone who can be pointed to as a link in the chain of distribution, someone who prepares drugs for someone else, someone who acts as a go-between, can be implicated in third-degree murder. And so any of the activities that Mr. Hall would be testifying about throughout that day, and including before police arrived on May 25th, 2020, could potentially incriminate him in that charge, not to mention drug sale and drug use. Additionally, the other area of testimony in which Mr. Hall would be invoking his Fifth Amendment privilege is any personal knowledge that he has of drug use by George Floyd up until and including May 25th for the exact same reason, Judge. It leaves him open to exposure on a potential future third-degree murder charge. Any testimony regarding his activities with Mr. Floyd could leave him open to potentially incriminating himself.
Right. I think what I'm going to do is ask Mr. Nelson to list for the court the topics and areas and whether there's something outside of what you just outlined. 'Cause maybe there is some common ground there. So if you could just switch places.
On the ground because somebody driving.